Mark I Ford Escorts are an iconic car of the 1970s, not only being one of the most popular European cars, but also popular in the rally scene, becoming practically unbeatable in the late 1960s and early 70s. It is unfortunate that not many are rallied anymore, but it's safe to say that many still exist. RallyOrange and Phil Jermyn are a local Nottingham rally group who have owned Escorts for decades. We are about to follow their journey and find out more about this local rally group.
We sort of started out doing things in cars because the two wheels weren't really my thing. I had a bit of an off that didn't do me any good, and that kind of put pay to that, so I went into cars. And I used to be into the custom scene and that sort of thing, which was great. Some good engineering and some very good skills by people, and kind of learned you that, of taking pride in what you do. Anyway, a short time afterwards, I got into an RS2000, which is quite a desired thing in its day, and met up with some guys that was doing what was called navigational exercises on paper, but actually was night rallies. Technically, I suppose the only thing we can say is really they were illegal, but very, very good fun. We did have police involvement at times, but even they agreed with it and said it keeps us out of the towns and sort of out of trouble. And that's where it really started. The only thing is the competition, and people got so competitive that we thought that it was probably time to move into proper rallying, really. So we'd got a workshop at the time, and as well as doing the running repairs and modifications and improvements to go along with the night rally, and at the same time I was starting to prepare a car for stage rallying, and had a great guy from a Carlton and District Motor Club at Nottingham, Brian Hodges, who really inspired me. He came down to the house, spent some time with us, and told us what we needed. Went out in the car for a little ride, suggested who we used for the following parts that was required, and the rest is history, as they say, I suppose. When I first wanted to start rallying, Brian was the one that took me under his wing, so to speak. He came from Nottingham to my house, which incidentally is 25 years ago.
25 years.
Probably to this day even.
Yeah,
it's on Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
And he educated me of what we needed to do, what we needed to do with the car, where we needed to go.
Basically, Phil and his mates were doing their own little motor club that wasn't affiliated to anything probably other than the police. And they had no organisations. They'd go down a farm track and then find out that it ended up at a river or ended up at an edge bottom, and then all turn around and come back. So it wasn't really the way of rallying, but I came round to see them all, and like much today, Phil had got sandwiches out, cups of tea on the go, and there was a good 8 or 9 people sat here wanting to know from me. I think I was chairman of the club at the time.
You was, yes.
Carlton District Motor Club. And I just explained to them that, if you want to do this, yes, it might cost you a bit more money, but there's a way of doing it properly. And unfortunately, there was only really Phil that moved into doing it properly.
Yeah.
The others
tagged along
with you, supported you, and came servicing and liked it, but it was the money side of it, I think, that cripples most people.
It is, yeah. The first event we did was back in 1992, which was the Carlton and District Motor Club's event that used to run at Manby Airfield. So we set our sights and targets for that to be the first event, which it was. And every rally we kind of looked at was the last one. We felt very fortunate to get into proper stage rallying, and there was nobody to guide us, lead us of what we needed and what was required for improvements. It was just a total learning curve. We went out on standard suspension pretty much. Okay, we did have Bilsteins on the front, but it was an English axle, no Lily slip diff, standard drum brakes, 5-speed box, which was totally standard and totally wrong gear ratios. The engine was quite good at the time for its performance and parts it was using, although not good enough. I mean, I think after the first 4 stages, my footwell on the driver's side was this deep in oil. We just kept topping it up, and the intention was to finish the rally, you know, and do the best. And whilst you was out there on the stages, you thought, you know, we're going really well, we're doing great, and then you go and look at the times and you think, no, you're not. You've got a lot to learn. But however, we had fun, and that's part of the learning process. And the next one you do, you make improvements, whether that would be to brakes or suspension or gearbox, engine, which of course at that time the next step was obviously to replace the engine, because it was throwing so much oil out that you couldn't continue with that sort of thing. And not only that, my boots couldn't handle any more of it.
I always used to think when I saw you drive, and I remember one comment I made to you, I don't know if I was doing the same event, but I actually asked how you could drive a car without a limited slip diff to the standard that you did. And yes. I think you looked at me and thought, what's he on about?
Yeah, yeah.
When you got a limited slip diff,
then I realised just what you was talking about, and now I wonder how it did happen. I know exactly what you mean.
I think you must have had some driving skills somewhere.
It must have been something somewhere. Pity I lost all that. But yeah, eventually we moved on and into many stage rallies. We had some good results, some good times. My brother navigated for me for majority, I think, of rallies. Really, he was the most regular, long-lasting navigator, and we had some good times together. Really, it was some good days.
Junction 12.
So what's it like to navigate for Phil?
A nightmare. It's funny, frightening, and very fast. Yeah, it's an experience that unless you've done it, it's difficult to explain really. One of the best moments was when I won the Class 3 Navigators Championship for the East Midlands. I mean, I dreamt of that in a month's Sundays. And of course, it won the Class 3 Drivers Champion, which was pretty good. A presentation at Nottingham. God knows what happened to the trophy now.
What was your scariest memory of being the navigator for Phil?
Scariest? I think the most frightening part really was for your very first forest event, was sat on the start line. That was scary. As soon as you left that start line and you get obviously you still get the feel of what the car's doing on loose ground. I mean, we'd raced about as kids, you know, but never through a forest, nothing like that. And that can be frightening, especially when you come in to a corner and you're perhaps doing, I don't know, you're perhaps doing 100 mile an hour and there's trees flashing by you. You might get a deer run out in front of you at any moment, or even a pheasant. I mean, I can remember one time where we had a pheasant hit a spotlight and it snapped the spotlight clean off. So it just shows you what sort of speed you are going.
Good days. It's a shame that, you know, that had to come to an end and we moved into a different navigator. Started then to move into more. We did the odd multi-venue forest stages, but once you got in there, it was like, I don't want to go anywhere else. I'm sick of these single venues, you know, it's going around an airfield multiple times and then going the opposite direction. You got bored of that. The real stuff was the forests, and once you got in there, it was like, I don't want to go anywhere else. And anyway, we moved into them to multi-venue championships really, and our first serious sort of multi-venue championship was 1999, whereas we did 9 rounds, running a normally aspirated Cosworth. Had a lot of troubles with that engine, blowing egg gasket on every rally, even using Group A egg gaskets. Ended up replacing the cylinder head as well as the egg gasket, still no better. And on the last rally of 1999, it let go altogether. It got stage 5. my navigator said at the time, David, he said, well, it's pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah, I said, we're not going to stop until it stops us. We've got that far, we need to keep going. But we still got the class championship placing, which was great. We did lead it for 9 weeks to start with, and we got 3 rallies with road penalties, but which didn't do us any favours. But it's all about learning. One of the best navigators that's been, a great navigator has been my stepson Daniel. He's been very good. Done a very, very good job. Kept quiet, not too quiet. Obviously tells me what I want to know, but never worries you. He doesn't, oh, watch out for. Or he just gets on with the job, does the job. Great navigator. It's a shame we couldn't do any more. But
what's it like to navigate for Phil?
I like to navigate for Phil. Exciting, very exciting. I have full faith in Phil. Absolute 100%. Grew up with him since I was 3 years old. He's a stepdad as well, as a friend, and he's very quick, quick. And he can control the car. It's definitely a thrill seeking ride, as well as a lot of concentration involved with maths at times at the end of the stages and that. A lot of responsibility to get the corners right.
Yeah.
Phil has rallied in the woods that I navigated with him a few times. The course has been different, but he knows the woods and that. But I've got to tell him if there's getting around the corner or anything like that. It's quite daunting as well as exciting. Most enjoyable part. The whole experience, really. There was a few bits which I remember that it was a bit scary at the time, but it was still quite enjoyable, if you know what I mean. I can remember there's a corner we was coming up to. It was a heavy braking zone, and it was like obviously all the cars, 30 cars, whatever, we've been through before, was heavily braking, and there was a big rut, and we hit this rut as we was braking quite hard, and that's quite a bit that sticks out quite most. I think it dented the front balance. We hit it that hard.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was enjoyable, but it's a bit.
It
definitely stuck in my mind. Yeah, definitely.
Would you say that's your sort of scariest in quotation?
No. There was one point where I think it was Sherwood Pines.
Yeah.
We was going over a crest, and a corner at the time. We went very light, and I remember looking up, and the back end was like getting pretty close to some. Phil probably had no idea, but he was just concentrating and keeping it on the road, and that was the scariest part. Going very light, feeling the traction going, and just feel like you're going towards the trees, but he had it totally under control. Afterwards, you're just like, oh.
In 2000, I decided to build a new shell, as the other one was getting a bit tired and a bit battle scarred. And I've always wanted an orange Escort. My brother had one many years ago, a 13 Sport, and it was orange, and it was the Phoenix orange. And I loved that car. I think it was absolutely gorgeous, and I always remember it, and I always thought, one day I want an orange Escort. So in 2000, when I built a new shell, that was the time I thought, this is it. It's going from white and blue to orange, and what better than to have the black stripe as it used to have the blue. And that was that. And then all of a sudden there seemed to be an abundance of orange cars starting to appear. Orange seemed to be the thing, so including the Ford Focus came out in orange, which was, obviously nothing to do with us, but it almost seemed as though somehow he was influencing others. But we had a good following. There was a lot of people on stages, family, friends and things. They said wherever they were, there was people who would stand up and say, look, the orange one's coming. You know, it was quite a nice thing. So that's where the orange came into play. We thought then, you know, let's do a website, and we decided to do a website. What the hell can we call it? We ran through lots of different ideas and names and things, and the Navigator, Simon, at the time, he says, you know, Rally Orange. You know, well, okay, that's simple, and that's where it went. We could have come up with a better name, but hey ho, that's history. That's where it was, and that's where we've got to today, really. So that started the orange car. We've got a lot of developments through with the orange car. It's dry sumped, it's cosy crank, rods, big valve head, good cam, 48s, running a dog box, limmy slip, narrow atlas. Pretty much a Group 4 car, really. Yeah, it's been a rev to sort of 8 grand, no problem. Always had fun in it. We had a couple of problems with gearboxes, with it being dog box early on, but after £1,000 thrown into reconditioning that, it was okay. But then in 2007, which really was the last rally we did, as multi-venue rally, that box let us down again, destroyed the clutch, obviously it ended the rally, which was a shame really, because then also coming into play was, I'd already replaced the seat belt, but coming into play was then you need new seat belts, then you need £1,000, well it's more than £1,000 to repair the gearbox, and then you wanted the event money, and he was like, I'm done with this, you know, I'm not throwing money into it. There's more to life than this. So that was pretty much from the start to the finish, really, in a very, very brief conversation, if you like. Little gem that's been mine since I was 17. It was the show we built back in 2000, and it's had some good results. A couple of class wins in championship for East Midlands, and we've not been out with it since Scampton, so it's still a bit dirty, I believe, if I remember right, underneath the covers. Let's have a look, and we shall see if she'll start as well. Been run for a while. Unfortunately, it only gets thrashed, not driven, really.
Right. So,
Okay,
yeah. What?
So in comparison to a standard car, obviously first thing is the roll cage, fully integrated with the car. Not only does it give the car strength, but obviously it's a safety aspect that if something goes drastically wrong, we've got something to protect us
Yes.
inside.
Yeah.
Bucket seats, carbon composite bucket seats, so they're fairly lightweight, quite comfortable.
Okay.
We've got plenty of padding in. We've got 5-point seat belts, 3-inch seat belts.
Safety first.
Yeah, and of course it's all part of the regulations for a stage car. You
Okay.
have to have these as standard fitment, laminated windscreen, etc. Fire extinguishers. There's a plumbed-in system and a handheld, which you have to have. We've also got a trip meter, which gives you intermediate mileage as well as total mileage, so that when you're working off a road book, you can basically tell how far you need to go before the next junction, etc. So you know your exact locations are correct.
So basically, the navigator would put this in.
Yes. Yeah.
And basically, he or she would tell you when to next take the
Next
right,
turn,
yeah,
left, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
There's a little remote button even underneath the roll bar there, so you don't have to reach forward. You can keep both hands on the maps,
This is
and
that thing,
every now and again,
yeah.
just reach over and press that. We've also got a various selection of switches there, pump 1 and 2, which is the fuel pumps.
We can change to a different fuel pump if we're lower down the tank, which hopefully we don't want to be, or maybe one stops functioning and we can switch to another pump. Sometimes the pumps start getting a bit warm, and you know, it can affect the fuel, so again you can change that. Top and bottom spotlights, obviously for long range and drive spotlights. Got a couple of switches there, so we can have one or the other. Cool. We've got a boot fan, which is the oil cooler in the boot of this car. So obviously that fan assists with the cooling if you're stationary. It draws in air through the quarter panel. External is through the back panel. Obviously interior fan, which is the standard sort of fitment. Wipers, standard fitment. Obviously ignition cutout, which again, safety. It's a safety requirement. As well as obviously helping us to start the car, and just a simple start button to speed the process should we stall.
And then you've got all your gauges here.
Yes. Oil temperature, obviously, just to monitor the temperature of the oil, which there's optimum running temperatures. Obviously, if it's too cool, then it's not working efficiently. If it gets too hot, the same thing, it thins too much. We've got oil pressure, which obviously we need to have a certain amount of oil pressure. Again, too much creates too much heat. Water temperature, which is obviously for the radiator and the coolant in the engine. And an ammeter there, which obviously tells you the battery condition really, and how much charge is being put into the battery. Moving on to the dashboard there, then obviously a rev counter and speedo. Rev counter is the most important thing.
Yes.
When you reach the optimum revs, there is a rev limiter on board, so obviously it'll cut the ignition for a brief period of time, and then kick back in again, so that's why you get a fluctuation of like a misfire when those are actually activated. And then usual standard things: headlight switch, indicators.
What notices to me is you've got a horn and a wipers here. Is that for the navigator when you're driving?
Yes,
they can.
Sometimes your concentration levels are so high. If there's something, perhaps maybe you've seen a spectator that might be in the way, or sometimes they're not the most common sense people. They'll stand a bit too close sometimes. Sometimes it can be you've caught another car and you just need to make them aware there's somebody behind, because it's not always a thing that you're looking in the mirrors to see what's going on behind. So you've got a horn over there, and then a wiper, and again, because of a Mark 1 Escort doesn't tend to have the stalks on the columns here to put the wipers on, I have to reach for there, and it's much easier for the navigator to do so. If we go through a puddle or something that splashes the windscreen, there's that availability. We've got a driver's footrest as well, so if we're on long straights, I've got somewhere to put my foot to one side and keep it off the clutch and things. And the infamous brake, clutch and accelerator. Standard fitment. Oil pipes.
Handbrake.
Handbrake, yes.
Gear stick is pretty standard.
Pretty standard. It's a rose jointed gear lever, so it's billet steel, very, very strong. Handbrake's a fly-off handbrake, so we don't have to press the button in. So we can just flick the handbrake, and then we can control the car by using that. It's a hydraulic handbrake as well, so it's very, very light and easy to pull the brakes on.
So it saves a lot of time.
Yeah, and it's it's a necessity for stage purposes, really. There's times when you need that.
Yes.
Certainly on very, very tight hairpins and things.
Definitely,
on tarmac. And again, everything's sort of tried to keep inside the car.
So you're about to say the
oil pipes. These are the oil pipes from the dry sump system to the tank at the back, so it's pumped from the engine through to the tank in the rear, also the oil cooler, and then it's returned to the engine, so that's hence the pipes again inside, so the most protected. And I think
you've got pens and pencils.
Usual things for the navigator to assistance. Again, there's an OK and SOS board, which again it's requirements. So is the first aid kit that's under the seat, which are all requirements. No splints, so we're not intending to have any serious accidents.
So yes.
Intercom's another thing. We do have intercom, so when you've got your helmet on, you don't have to be shouting to each other. We can just talk like this, even though it's very, very noisy inside the car. Because the microphone and the earpieces are so close to you, you can just talk like this and you can hear yourself quite clearly.
That's important for the navigator.
To get
his message to you is very important.
Absolutely,
especially when you're herring around the stage.
Yeah,
and
gravel stage particularly because of the
Yeah.
stone noise and engine exhaust, etc. And the gearbox is very noisy. But then even on the road sections we do have practice headsets, so we can talk to each other on the road without hearing all the ambient noise, which is quite something really in a stage car, because all the sound deadening's removed for lightness.
Yes.
And obviously it's not flammable and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
Therefore you get more resonance through the body and a lot more noise. So that's the need for practice headsets, so that you've got something to use on the road sections to get from stage to stage really. We've got a helmet box there to drop the helmets into in between stages, because you can't use your helmets on the road.
No.
You have to remove those before going from stage to stage. But yeah, it's been a great car. We've had some good moments in it. We've had some reasonably scary moments, but that's all part and parcel of the learning curve, really. And yeah, some memorable days. It's been good, and the car's been good to us, which is, I suppose, more important.
Yes, and it's still going.
Yeah,
goes to
still
the
going.
stage.
Yes,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
brilliant.
I've probably not been as good to the car as the car has been to me. Yes, so that's about it really. For a lot of differences inside the car, but basically it's still the same structural construction as a standard car. So
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you very much, Harry.
Yeah. So what makes this stand out from a regular escort or a standard escort?
Wow, quite a lot really to the, I suppose, untrained eye, so to speak. Seam welding is one of the items. Obviously, exhaust tunnels is another. The reason for this one, obviously, as I said before, is because it allowed us to change the engine. If the engine had an exhaust this side, it was already there. We didn't have to do any shell work. But all the seam welding, 4 links which are welded into the car, skidded spring hangers, which some RS models had that, all RS models had that, but some standard cars obviously didn't. There was certain builds, like ones that was done for the police and such like, had skidded spring hangers, but standard cars don't tend to come with that. Any apertures that's not needed obviously get capped over, again just adding for strength as well as preventing water traps, I suppose. Obviously roll cage, the bolts come through the floor for the roll cage, which is part of strengthening the car as well as your safety requirements, of course. As for the shell work underneath and the seam welding, there's bigger tunnels, exhaust tunnel, the diff tunnel, the gearbox tunnel. They're all differences. The shock absorber mounting's different. Obviously the whole axle is a different axle altogether. It's a 3 litre Capri, as the works cars originally used, which keeps it pretty much the same sort of track as the standard Escort, but it is obviously different. The actual shock absorber mountings, they're actually on the top as opposed to coming off of the spring platform and going through the body. These actually go through a tower that's been fitted into the car, so that's a total difference in shock absorber mounting. It gives you a more travel and a more direct travel. Panhard rod and tower. The tower again is attached to the chassis. There's actually a pole that goes through the middle, through the chassis and into the inner wheel tub. And that mount then is to carry this bar to stop the axle from moving left and right in hard cornering.
Okay, cool.
The 4 links do have the original works cars used to have 4 links, of course, obviously for the strength and keeping the axle in a straight place. But Mexico's and RS's, they had an anti-tramp, so that when you accelerate, if the wheels break traction, the axle tends to jump, which they call tramping, and that used to attach to a bracket somewhere around here. But not as good as 4 links, but they do help. But these they'll stop all the tramping. It won't tramp at all with these 4 links setups, and it stops the axle movement. every which way. It makes it travel in the right direction. The front end, as you can see, is pretty basic stuff. We've not gone for any compression struts or anything like that. It's on adjustable track control arms, which allows for positive, negative camber, which often we only run negative camber. Twin cam anti-roll bar, which is a bit stiffer, a bit wider. Sump guard, that's something else that's not on a standard car. The brakes are obviously uprated, the suspension's uprated. All the brake lines are inside the car.
Yeah.
So nothing to get caught. And very briefly, that's about it really.
So we have learnt more about the people who have helped Phil over the years, and we've learnt more about MTL, his Mark I Ford Escort, which he's had since he was 17. But there is someone who we haven't spoken about yet. Johnny Cobb has not only been a supporter of Rally Orange, but has also helped to build cars with Phil over the years. Here's their story on how they met.
How did you two meet? How did Phil meet Johnny and Johnny meet Phil?
A few years ago, somebody asked me to have a look at a Ferrari that was in the right mess. Cut a long story short, really, went and looked at this thing. I didn't really want to do it, it was so bad.
It was bad, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Well, it'd been written off, hadn't it? It was...
Yeah, I mean, a long story to it. This guy had sent this Ferrari to somebody to make some alterations, and basically he ripped him off. After that, it ended up going through insurance. Insurance sent it to an auction. He had to buy it back out of the auction, which again, it had more parts robbed from it. So I really didn't think that it would be something I couldn't do on my own. There was just too much to do. I mean, there was parts of the gearbox, no brakes, no master cylinders, pedal box was out. It was just an absolute mess. I'm sure, perhaps people could see the pictures that can represent that. And anyway, after a very short period of time, I was coaxed into it, said that there was more people on board to assist with other things. And lo and behold, one of those people was Johnny.
Yeah, there's more people, it was me.
There were some others involved, or supposedly
Yeah.
meant to have been involved, but these people didn't seem to show, and of course it just ended up being me and Johnny. We got on like ice on flies. It's almost as if we knew each other for a long time. Incidentally, we had known each other for a long time, unbeknowing. We was doing a charity rally car rides at Newark Showground, and unbeknown to me, Johnny was there as a young lad.
Back in 2000.
Yes.
15 years old.
And of course, again, unbeknown to me, Johnny was taking photographs and such like of Matilda, MTL, and
Only 15. I was on my bike, because obviously couldn't drive at the time.
yeah,
I remember biking down, just sat watching. Obviously couldn't do anything, just take photos. That's all I did. And funny enough, speaking, I did bring them tonight.
Well, this is
So,
what this book was about, is it?
This is what
You
this
wouldn't
book's
show
all
me.
about. All those years ago, where I was taking these photos.
Oh wow, excellent! Yeah.
So I think, was it that day? Was it an Astra or something that I rolled? I seem to remember.
Yeah, that's
Someone
right.
rolled
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and
but,
apparently they started timing the cars as well as we went round.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
And
But yeah, no, I remember it.
apparently we put the fastest time in as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which was quite good.
But then I just remember sitting there thinking, oh, I wish I could go in there. But I think it was about a tenner or something like that to have a passenger ride. Cause I
Yeah,
think it was
unless you know
raising money.
somebody, then
Yeah, and then here we are today. It's go on every weekend, and jump in one. It's
yeah,
really,
Well, I think you've
complete
probably-
opposite now, isn't it?
you've probably had more opportunity than this one anyway, haven't you? Since
Yeah, so yes, yeah, very much so. But it's
Yeah,
still,
excellent, mate. That's
it's
nice.
still an enjoyment. It's
Yeah,
really enjoying.
yeah. The project of the Ferrari, we achieved the mission that was set by us, which is almost unachievable. We actually got the car done in 1 month, doing 2 nights a week only.
A few Saturdays as well, weren't there?
Yeah, there was a few, and some very late nights.
Early mornings.
Particularly the last one,
Yes.
whereas the car ended up doing 60 laps of Donington for a particular event that this guy wanted to do.
Charity event, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was mission accomplished. that was great for us, but we didn't actually go to bed that night at all because the work on the car ended up until I think we met the sticker guy coming in about 6 in the morning, didn't we?
Yeah, I think about 6 we went home,
Yeah.
had a shower, got
Yeah.
changed, and then you
Came back.
picked me back up, and then off to Donington we went, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we saw most of it happen. The thing was achieved, and we came home, and that was all good. So we had chance to go back and do some additional work to the car, and then since then we went back and sort of put it back to a more road going format, didn't
got
we?
an MOT on it, didn't we?
Yeah,
So,
you got the lights and things
it's,
working, put all the wiring back in, and give it a few more creature comforts, and the result was quite good. I think for the facilities and the time and the input that we was given of that's what I want, then that's exactly what he got. You know, we didn't. All right, we used some of our own initiative and put that to it, but at the end of the day, the guy got exactly what he asked for. So that was that. After that, we said, that's that project over. I started on an escort. Johnny was more than eager, and he's been an absolute inspiration, a great help, enthusiastic, which has given me enthusiasm. I mean, when I started this car, now, I kind of got a bit bored with doing so many other things. I'd already got that car there, so I suppose really it would have been done, but it would have been a lot slower. It probably wouldn't have been finished now. But with Johnny coming on board and showing the enthusiasm, turning up every Monday and Wednesday, and sometimes other days as well, it just made that continuation of, and that's why we've got this new one really. WDK.
Yeah, well, I remember when we was we just came to the end of finishing the Ferrari, and it was like, what we're going to do now? It's just like, and I remember you saying about having your car, you'd done certain bits to the shell, and it was on a spit and all that stuff, and I was like, I just thought, well, why not carry on working with cars, tinkering? I thought, well, why don't we come and carry on with your escort? Which I remember you was thrilled with the fact of someone showing some interest and
because it is
learn, really.
Bit of a lonely life really in a garage doing stuff on your own. Okay, it can be quite therapeutic, and sometimes it's nice to be on your own, but a lot of the time you need somebody to help you out with stuff, and hopefully it's been a little bit educational as well for both of us.
Yeah, definitely,
but this particular car, obviously, we've had lots of things we've made, which I've always wanted on an escort, and of course this was the time. Originally, my intention was, I'll do the car to whatever spec I can get it to, as it's going to be ready for the future. But I'll just use all the pieces I've got and let's get it out there, get going. But Johnny coaxed me into. I mean, since then we've got all the works layout dash. We've got a BDA lookalike engine in there, 15-inch wheels. We've got all the bits and pieces that I wanted it to end up being, but we did that in the process of building it instead of let's add that on later. Obviously, there's going to be pieces that you want to add on. There's always improvements. You never really finish with an escort, so it's not finished yet. But by heck, it's a long way on from what I expected it to be. I only thought it was going to use up the parts that we've got as spares and we'd get some sort of fuss out of it, but it's well extended that.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, it's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure with Johnny. He's been a good lad. Let's hope it continues.
Like to be part of RallyOrange?
It's enjoyable. It's good fun. Good for a lot of shows. Well, not a lot of shows, but I mean quite a few shows. It'd be nice to go to a few more. It's good. It's a good laugh between friends. Meet a lot of new people. A lot of people around the cars. Always answer any questions if anybody's got any about rallying and what we've done in the past and the club stands that we do now at present. It's good. It's a good laugh. Yeah.
So where are we now? What are we doing now? Really, we're doing anything that's available, I suppose. Situations change. If somebody calls on us to go and have a a show, then yeah, we'll take the cars. We have a great time at shows. Everybody's welcome. Not everybody's into orange escorts. Yeah, it's about our own entertainment, passion for cars. If an event turns up where somebody wants us to show a car moving, whether that'd be at high speed or just cruising speeds, that goes as well. Anything that goes for the cars is good for us. Whether that's at high speed, which I kind of prefer.
So if you get asked to do rides again,
That'd be something
yeah.
I'd enjoy doing, depending on the quantities and the venue and all that sort of thing. Obviously, we need tyres and those things that don't come along for free, not all the time anyway. So yeah, there's lots of things we do. We'd like to stay active. If the very least we can do is build cars and drive them locally, that's the minimum we want to be doing. After that is going to shows, whereas let somebody else hopefully enjoy what we've put together, and obviously have our own sort of entertainment as well. We entertain each other quite well with jokes and our own personal behaviours, which are not unlike anybody else's, don't get me wrong. But then after that, yeah, if there's something motorsport wise where we can, I suppose, vent a bit of anger, then that's good as well. But if we get requests for that, then the situations have to be right. It's not that we're just an open shop and we can go and do anything and everything that people want to request us to do, because it's not that easy, and logistically it's not easy either. We've got quite a few cars going now, which take some maintenance, take some looking after, and take some getting to places. So yeah, anything to keep us active. We want to be out there and doing stuff.